The medicine's in the work. If I could just not be negative, that's a massive win for me.
What's going on, everybody? Paul Tully here with the FY podcast, Finding Your Inspiration, where we find your inspiration and we follow it. Today, we have a very special guest here. We have Dave Whelan, para-athlete. Dave has overcome some of the most difficult challenges in life. I got to witness an amazing achievement yesterday. He ran an Ironman. Me and the team went out there. We cheered him on, and it was a wonderful experience just to see the endurance and the dedication. Very inspiring. So we're going to jump into Dave's story now. Dave.
Awesome.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm stoked to be here.
Man, we're excited to have you, man. So you're from Ohio?
Well, I'm originally from Southern California, but I moved to Ohio about 4 years ago now.
Tell us what's going on. I mean, you got injured in LA. You were living in California. Tell us a little bit about that injury and that day and what it was like.
Yeah, so I was injured in a work accident back in March of 2012. I had my foot crushed by a piece of equipment while I was working. From there, I was subsequently diagnosed with a rare form of a nerve condition called complex regional pain syndrome. I had multiple surgeries that were trying to repair my foot. After each one of those surgeries, my condition of complex regional pain syndrome, or CRPS for short, kept spreading higher and higher up my leg. I was given the opportunity to elect to amputate in 2018, being told that I would have a 98 to 99% chance of being completely pain-free if I amputated. I went 2 years without a left foot, battling just the worst chronic pain condition known to medical science. It's also known as the suicide disease. CRPS just feels like you're constantly being lit on fire and stabbed repeatedly, and anything more than a light breeze or like top sheet of a mattress just felt like it was sandpaper ripping off hot skin. And from there, like I said, went 2 years without a left foot. And I ended up having a revision surgery. So yeah, it's been a long journey, almost a decade in the making to get to this point.
I know 10 year, it's like a decade in the making. I guess what I'm trying to get at is what was that first 6 months like?
I mean, it was definitely quite a bit of pain. It was not knowing how to manage my emotions and my thoughts about it. I was very positive and like not wanting to feed anything too much that I didn't know, like any sort of uncertainty. So the CRPS that I had wasn't a result of the actual like crushing injury that I had at work, but it was a result of one of the first surgeries that I had. So I had just turned 25. I thought I was young and resilient, you know, like I've been hurt before and bounced back kind of thing. Like it's just going to be a short-term kind of thing. Granted, I also didn't know that it was going to be like years and years and just it get as bad as it got.
Hopelessness, despair, depression.
All of it, man. All of it. Went through all of it. The anxiety, the depression, the PTSD, the suicidal ideations and attempts. Yeah, I battled all of it.
Did they provide the job? I mean, did they take care of you, medical expenses, stuff like that, or?
Yeah. You know, with workers' compensation, you know, they covered the bill, you know, for the treatment and stuff like that. It's not an easy process to navigate by any means. Like it's definitely not that cold cut and dry and like, you know,
yeah, this
leads to this kind of thing. Like it was a fight. It was a massive fight for everything.
How about therapy? Were you able to get any kind of help with that? I mean, aside from all the physical stuff with the mental, and or did you use any spirituality? What helped lift some of the?
I did have access to like talk therapists and psychologists and psychiatrists and all that good stuff. It wasn't really effective or like able to reach me where I was at that point, nor was I necessarily like in the mindset to let it. Like I definitely didn't feed it any sort of like power and wanting to help me. Like I was so deep and so dark in my depression. Like I said, the suicidal ideations. And for me, it wasn't effective. It wasn't able to reach me. I'm not a super spiritual person, you know, especially at that time. It was more of just like every day that I didn't commit suicide was a win. And you know, I was not suffering well at all. So it was just one day to the next kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know, love and grace and gratitude to all my friends that were a part of that. But you know, everybody, when I was injured, like the party stopped for me. So like I had to let everybody kind of continue on their journey and kind of detach from that a little bit. So I had a few friends that were still there and helped me out quite a bit, but I really tried to suffer in silence, and also hide it behind like a lot of alcohol and a lot of marijuana, and just trying to like disassociate from my body and just not feel anything, because I read everything as pain. You know, my parents, they're my superheroes, right? Like they were there with just everything that I possibly needed, but like I also wanted them to enjoy their journey in life and not have to worry about where I was at in mine.
Yeah.
So I didn't tell them everything initially until after like the suicide attempts.
Okay. How many attempts were there?
2.
2 attempts. Wow. Thank goodness you were not successful in that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you know, after one of the suicide attempts, I tried overdosing on some pills, and I woke up the next morning and like the first thing I said was thank you. I was just in so much pain. And like I said, just feeding suffering so poorly and like not even trying to move the needle forward at all. But I was just suffering so poorly and just feeding it every way possible.
So now we're at rock bottom. Mm-hmm. When you said thank you, was that a God thing, or was that, how do you feel about that?
You know, I definitely believe that there is a higher power out there. I don't know what it is, and I don't think it's necessarily my job to know. When I said thank you, like, I don't know if it was to the universe. I don't know if it was to like some sort of like higher being or higher power, whatever it was. Like I think just acknowledging the fact that I was still able to be there was important for me.
Let's talk about the rise of Dave and coming back from rock bottom. So, you know, you experienced this horrific moment in life that's unjust and unfair, go through the depression, try to exit the world. God says, no, that's not going to happen. There's a bigger purpose for you. How do you find that way to rise back up?
So I moved up to a small town called Green Valley Lake, 7,000 feet in elevation, I think like 300 full-time residents. I went up there knowing that like I needed to detach from everything and really focus on myself. And if I wanted to be comfortable while I was up there, I would have to be forced to work. Like the snow that got up there was incredible, right? So like that meant like I would have to sort and stack my own wood. It also meant that I would have to, you know, shovel snow or, you know, like really learn how to take care of myself all over again. I understood that I needed to like really sit with my pain. I needed to sit with my anxiety. I needed to sit with my depression and my PTSD and give it all a voice. I needed to listen to all of it. Again, every day that I didn't commit suicide was a win, right? Like, but that's not progression, right? So like I needed to feed moving forward as much as possible. So that was like really the catalyst to moving forward was giving my pain and my anxiety and my depression a voice.
I like what you said about you forced yourself to go live in a place where you knew it was going to be tough.
Yeah, I really feel like suffering is an action. And just like any action, you could be good at it or you can be bad at it. I was suffering so poorly and I was feeding suffering poorly to where like I started acknowledging all the things that I needed to do to suffer better, right? Like what it was that I was feeding myself mentally and psychologically, everything that I was taking in, everything that I wasn't doing, you know, like meditation for me is absolutely huge, right? So that's a way that I'm able to kind of like slow myself down and feed a positive perspective, you know, focus on my breathing. My win every day that I would have to celebrate during that time was like walking into the door of a gym, right? Like if I could sit in a chair at the gym, I had to celebrate that and feed that as much as possible rather than sitting on the couch and letting the day pass me by. What I realized on my journey, you know, I'm starting to do a lot of public speaking. You know, I'm also tossing around the idea of writing a book as well. And one of the things that I've kind of acknowledged while, you know, meditating on what it is that I've gone through is I've developed a process that I've understood that like I've figured out for me how I can go from negative to neutral to positive, and positive to powerful. And just, you know, figuring out, and for me, like that all starts in my mind. all of these challenges are designed to be difficult, right? But like, it doesn't need to be more difficult than it already is. And for me, like, you know, when I have some skin in the game, I guess financially, like I have a coach, right? I also have my my strength and conditioning team as well. So like I'm invested in it, right? So like when you invest in something, you know, like a coach, and you give them the ability to be able to critique you and hold you accountable, for me, like that was absolutely massive as well, right? So,
how do you make that sustainable financially? I mean, is it sponsors, or are you working at other job and then doing the athletics on the side? Or
there are ways that you can find coaching platforms. There are coaching apps as well that are very financially affordable. There are even some free resources. You know, there are, like, if you're interested in doing triathlon or running or stuff, like I would jump on Google. I would also look up like your local running group or your local triathlon group or cycling group. My coach, so I live in Cincinnati right now. My coach is in, what is it? I think Idaho. So we do everything virtually, right? So like I see my coach probably like once or twice a year, but we jump on calls and stuff. But you know, it can be financially very affordable, or, you know, you could go the route of, you know, finding something that's like super, super, super tailored to you. And, you know, that's obviously going to be a little bit more, but in terms of like sponsors and stuff, I have a couple sponsors that help me out. Beyond Exercise is my strength and conditioning. They're local in Cincinnati. I have Zoot Sports that helps me out with all my gear and stuff. But in terms of like financial sponsorships, that is something that I'm working on. So right now, all of this I'm financially
doing yourself.
Correct. Yeah.
No, that's great. I mean, that was a lot of really good advice. At what moment did you decide I want to start training?
For me, like the saying was true that you don't know what you got till it's gone. I didn't have that ability, you know, during my injury, right? So like I had to develop mantras for myself. And one of them was I was going to be in relentless pursuit of what sets my soul on fire. And for me, that was just the ability to run again. Like I enjoyed running, but I only really did it recreationally. So my dream was to run again. Right. All I wanted to do was run again. So running this Ironman yesterday was my 3-year anniversary of celebrating running again. So wow. I walked for my first time July 3rd of 2020. I had to wait to get a prosthetic that was able to fit to me to where I was able to start running again. So
this is a terrible like comparison, I think, but it feels right. It's kind of like the Forest Gump. Like, you ever watch Forest Gump where it's like
I was running.
I was running because he was like, when he lost, he had the braces on his legs, and then it was like once he started running, Forrest did not stop. And,
absolutely,
it's kind of like there's such an. I mean, I guess that isn't accurate. It's when you lose something, or you don't have the ability to do it, and what you would give to have that. And I feel like the important inspiration from that right there, and I want to say that to the cameras, whether you or somebody, one of your loved ones, you know, are going through something really bad, there's a lot of times where I just think about somebody who I know or I love is sick, or they don't have the ability. And if there's no one in your life, you can just look at a local hospital, a children's hospital, and think there's somebody that would give anything to be able to just go out and take a jog in the sun. And if you're like me and you battle with obesity and food addictions, you know, sometimes that might help you get through the moment. Just literally to think there's people that physically could never do it, and we are able to do it, so why are we not doing it? And I kind of got that from what you're saying.
The physicality side of it is absolutely there, right? Like you definitely have to be training to be physical, but you also you need to train the mind too. And when I ran past you guys after that first lap and I saw you at the turnaround, I pointed at my head, right? And like for me, like at that point, the suffering was real, right? Like my leg was completely numb. The only way that I kept going at that point was just feeding positive and feeding powerful as much as possible. Like every person that I was passing while I was running, I would say, hey man, great job. You're doing absolutely awesome. Keep it up. Keep up the pace. You know, we're all in this together. You got this. The body can endure, right? Like the body's designed to push. It's designed to survive. It's designed to not fail, right? So like it's your mind for me at that point that I really, really had to conquer. And there's this saying that I love. It's by Seneca. It is, I judge you unfortunate for having never been through misfortune. You've gone through life without an opponent. Nobody will know what you're capable of, not even you. Right. So look, like if I break that down, that means that going through those trials and tribulations and learning how to go through it and suffer well is going to make you more powerful in the long run. Right. So like I tell myself I microdose discomfort daily to show myself how strong and how powerful I am. So when I go into those challenges, I have so much, motivation in the bank that I'm able to kind of cash in on and just point that to, or pull that to the front of my mind and just push myself forward.
Just life hits you so hard at all aspects sometimes. And I feel like there's something about somebody that has went through the traumas that you have experienced and many others have experienced in different ways. One thing about trauma and hardship is when you hit those dark bottom places, there's only up. There's only one way to go from the bottom, and that's up. And whether you're talking to war veterans, people who have done long prison terms, any people from illnesses, terminal illnesses, there's only one way to go from, I mean, you choose how to live in that torment, right?
Yeah, I'm very big on energy, right? Like positive and negative energy is just such a heavy vibration, right? So like I feel like extending love, grace, and gratitude are full force multipliers, and that is just positive energy that you can extend. And recently I heard that like Stephen Colbert lost 2 of his brothers and his dad in a plane accident. And his journey of going through that. And what he was saying is he had to learn to fall in love with the thing that he wished most would not have happened. Because I had to fall in love and accept with love, grace, and gratitude so much the thing that I wish would not have happened. And really like, how could I turn this into like the most positive and powerful thing that really helps me move forward as much as possible? You know, conquer the mind and the body's going to follow, right? But like, it's the mind is such a powerful thing, but it has to be trained.
I think some people think marathons and sports and why would anybody do that? Why would anybody want to ride a bike for 112 miles or run 26 following? Or, why would anybody do this? What would you say is the real reason you do this?
The medicine's in the work. It's absolutely in the work. It is. There's so much therapy in that journey. Everything that I went through in my injury, I'm able to like have doses of that throughout the competitions, right? Like I feel the pain. I feel the negative dialogue. Like I feel absolutely everything, right? So like I'm able, and for me, like my journey of going through like my trauma is incredibly powerful for me. And if I can revisit that while I'm doing an endurance sport, then fantastic. Like that's all stuff that I know how to have that push me forward. But life, it's an endurance sport, right? Like we're going to have to endure. And part of like enduring everything that life has to throw at you, like not everything's going to be candy canes and unicorns and rainbows, right? Like that's not realistic. But how do we handle those hardships that life will inevitably throw at us, right? And I think that it's not necessarily seeking a comfortable life, but learning how to endure those moments that are designed to keep us from moving forward, right?
Yeah.
It's developing the tools to make us stronger.
Yeah. I think the more we could not live in negativity, but be prepared for those moments by pushing ourselves and staying comfortable in the uncomfortable, we're prepared. And I know you were talking about, I want you to tell me about the wolf.
Yeah, the story of the 2 wolves.
Yeah.
It's a Native American story, and I absolutely fell in love with it. It goes there's a grandpa and their grandson sitting together, and the grandpa's sharing different stories and life lessons with the grandson. And he looks at the grandson and says, do you know that within you lives two wolves, right? And one wolf represents pain and anger and resentment. And then the other wolf represents love and perseverance and strength. And he says that both of these wolves are fighting against each other, and they're within everybody and fighting this battle. And the young grandson looks at the grandpa and says, which one's going to win? The grandpa says, the one you feed. Right. So like, it's really, you know, it forces you to think like, what are you feeding? Right. Are you feeding strength and positivity and something that's going to help you move forward? Or are you feeding negative? Are you feeding the victim mentality? And for me, the victim mentality is an anchor, right? It's going to drag me down. I've been there. I know 1,000 ways to fail. And unfortunately, I'm very, very, very good at it. Like I can feed that so well, but I also know how to do the opposite now. Like I can feed strength. I can feed positivity. I can feed powerful. And when I can't on those days that it's just not realistic, right? Like if something happens to where like it just puts me in a bad mood or I'm going through a lot of phantom limb pains, then I also know how to practice the state of neutrality, you know, and just letting a situation be what it is. I don't have to feed it or assign it like a positive or negative emotion. It could just be what it is, right? And I could find a lesson in that moment that is going to help me learn how to move forward somehow. But all I have to do is just not be negative. If I could just not be negative, that's a massive win for me. Like that's equally as strengthening for me as being positive is or powerful is, right? Is just not being negative.
Wow. Yeah. Where are we going from here? What's the plan, Dave? What's life? What's your 5-year plan?
I really hope to be in LA in 2028. You know, I would love to be on the U.S. Paralympic team in 2028. You know, I had my injury in Los Angeles. I had my amputation in Los Angeles. I learned how to walk again in Los Angeles. I ran for my first time in Los Angeles. Bringing that full circle would be absolutely massive for me. But with that being said, like, I don't want my whole athletic career to be like really fall on that one moment. You know, if that's on my journey, then fantastic. If it's not, then, I want to be the best person I can be. You know, I want to be the best athlete I can be. I want to motivate. I want to inspire. I want to share my journey.
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely inspiring. As you know, you're inspiring people here in this room. 2 of us are running Ironmans. You're a big part of that. We've been watching. Norma's been watching your journey for a while. She brought you to our attention at FYI, which I'm really grateful for because now I watch you daily and stay on your socials. And so, I mean, I know you're impacting more lives, but you're definitely impacting my life, man. So,
thank you.
So I'm really grateful for what you're doing. God never fails. Bigger plan for you, and it's happening right now. It's happening. It's been happening, and it's going to continue to happen. I have no doubt that you're gonna get on that Olympic team. But I like what you said too. It's not about that one moment. I mean, my dream was to be an actor. Yeah, I mean, I am an actor, but my dream was to be like a big actor. And through acting, I mean, I ended up getting into writing. I wrote multiple plays, wrote a film, directed a film. It's like, got this podcast now. It's like, who knows where life's going to take you? It's the journey and enjoying. So I love my life and I love where it's going, but I went through the whole, I failed at this, and it's not about the one event. Like, can anybody do this? Can anybody have faith and believe in themselves and get up off that couch and go out and be a better person? Can anybody do that?
I absolutely believe that anybody could do that. You have the ability to reframe what's going on in your life. I believe that you have the ability to reinvent yourself and be exactly who you want to be. I believe I'm the architect of my life, and I could design it exactly how I want it to be. I have to visualize it. I have to believe in it. I have to feed it in every way possible. I had to destroy who it was that I was. Again, I lived for the weekend, right? Like, for me, it was all about the alcohol. It was all about the party. I'm not that person anymore. And that is all on design and intentionality and feeding that as much as possible. I truly believe that you could be whoever it is that you want to be. And it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be comfortable, it's going to come from a state of discomfort. I think falling in love with the journey and the progress and focusing on incremental gains over time and change and just focusing on moving that needle forward is going to be just absolutely massive. And yeah, I think that anybody could do it, but it's feeding it in every way possible. And, you know, for me, it starts in the mind, it starts in the breath. And then it's just actions from there to having undeniable evidence that, you know, you are who you say you are through those actions, and just relying on that as just energy and money in the bank.
Man, I love it, man. Dave, it's been an honor having you on. I hope that we could, you know, we're going to follow your progress, and I hope we could do this again at some time and just kind of check in and see where you're at. 'Cause I have no doubt that where you're going is just going to get bigger and more inspiring and more awesome. So
I appreciate you, man.
No, I appreciate you, man. I'm going to close us out here. Hey, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. This is another episode of FYI Podcast, where we're finding your inspiration. We follow it. A couple things I took out of today's episode sitting here with Dave. Truly anything is possible. We're the architects of our own life. We map out what we want to do, when we want to do it. Sometimes we have incidents in life that take us to the darkest places. We experience loved ones hurt, stuff with ourselves, but it's in those dark places where you truly find the light. It's in those dark places where you decide, which way do I go? Which wolf am I going to feed? You know, it's your decision. And every decision we make could be uncomfortable, like Dave said. But if we have a vision of where we're going, it's truly possible. I hope you go get it. I hope you want it. You desire it. Go get it. It's out there. Don't waste another minute. Start right now. This is another episode, FYI Podcast. I love you all. Hope you're loving me back. See you on the next one.
You should never stress about the problems you be facing. Everybody in the mud on the struggle trying to make it. Look into the mirror and you see the motivation. Then you step into the world and you find your inspiration. I'm finding inspiration, and once I get a hold of it, I'll never get complacent. Look into the mirror and you see the motivation. Then you step into the world and you find your inspiration.